Can Ickey Ekwonu bounce back from his sophomore slump and reestablish himself as the Panthers franchise left tackle? We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you right now every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as we continue into off-season mode starting on July 15th. We'll be back to your team every day, which, of course, is our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council. We're starting again on July 26th. The weekly Friday mailbag is back here on the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We continue our annual positional breakdowns here on Locked On Panthers. Today on Monday, we looked at the tight end group, and on today's show, we're going to stand a line of scrimmage, look at the offensive tackles, and then we're going to look at the interior on Friday. The last couple of years, I've just looped together the entire offensive line, but I figure this year with the players that are involved, the storylines, made more sense to do offensive tackles today and then do centers and guards on Friday's show. And then on Monday, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do a overall state of the Carolina Panthers offense with Dave Canales coming in as a head coach and play caller and hoping to get the best out of Bryce Young and make him look like the number one overall pick. And for that to happen, the Panthers are going to need Ickey Ekwonu to bounce back off of what was truly a shocking and miserable season for the Panthers franchise left tackle. So talking about the biggest story, about the biggest player, and yes, Taylor Moton has been the beacon of consistency here in Carolina the last 6 seasons, but the Panthers know what they're getting out of Taylor Moton at that right tackle spot. I don't know if we know what we're getting out of Ickey Ekwonu at left tackle heading into this season, and I applaud Ickey. The last time we heard from him during OTAs, he admitted that he felt like he kind of had arrived. He didn't take as much of the coaching and help that he could have when preparing for the 2023 season, and that bit him in the ass. So he's been humbled, and he still has the talent to be a high-level left tackle, even though plenty of you said you got to move him inside the guard, and we saw the Panthers weren't all that interested as they went out there and got guys who are already proven guards in the NFL and spent a pretty penny to get them. They still believe in Ickey, and I still would like to believe in Ickey Ekwonu's ability to be the franchise left tackle. Quite honestly, Charlotte kid, like myself, love this story. The guy who grows up here as a fan, goes to state, has success, becomes a top 10 pick, and gets to play for his hometown team. I want it to work out for the story alone. In fact, he's a kid from Charlotte just like me, but also because the Panthers, they've had a constant turnstile at left tackle. Byron Bell, Marshall Newhouse, Matt Khalil, the blindside Michael Orr, the rented tackle Russell Okung, Mike Rimmers, who single-handedly lost the Super Bowl. I don't want to go back to the well of trying to find another left tackle. We need Ickey to work. They need Ickey to work. Ickey needs himself to get it back together and to work. So can Ickey Ekwonu bounce back from his sophomore slump and reestablish himself as the franchise left tackle here in Carolina? Looking back at last season, the Panthers allowed 65 sacks. That was brutal. And according to Pro Football Focus, Ickey was responsible for 11 of them. You do the math there. Yikes percentage. He played 1,148 snaps. That was tied 5th most in the NFL. So if you can say this, he has been durable. He has been out on the field, and that is something that Okung couldn't do. That's something that Michael Orr had problems doing. It's something Matt Khalil also struggled to do. He has at least been available, something that Panther left tackles over the course of the last decade since Jordan Gross retired have not been able to do consistently. He was penalized 12 times. That was tied 3rd most in the NFL. He allowed, again, 11 sacks. That was the 3rd most in the NFL last season. Allowed 44 pressures. And when you look at his PFF grades, 67.4 overall PFF grade, having him graded as the 40th best tackle out of 81 eligible tackles. His pass blocking grade was 62.3, 55th out of 81. Run blocking grade 77, so that's 11th out of 79, and that is a key reason why many people, Mel Kiper Jr. is kind of the first one who brought this up during the draft time, but also Panther fans have echoed this, that this is why Ickey Ekwonu should play guard, because he's great when it comes to run blocking. But it would be nice to have him road grade on the outside and be able to protect Bryce Young or whoever the quarterback may be in the future's blindside, of course, assuming that they're going to be a right-handed quarterback. So looking at those grades, they're not that dissimilar to what he did in 2022 as a rookie, when everyone was feeling pretty good about Ickey moving forward as a franchise left tackle. Overall PFF grade in 2022 was 65.3. Last year, 67.4. So a slight uptick. The pass blocking grade was a 67.5 the year before. Last year was 62.3. So that, of course, went down. Run blocking grade really improved from 64.0 to 77.0. And if you really watch the games, it's pretty obvious that the one area where he really struggled last season was pass blocking. Now, Thomas Brown, the Panthers' former OC and play caller, did come out late last season and said that I could have done more to help Ickey Ekwonu, which is part of the reason why he's no longer here and he's now in Chicago. And it may take some time before he gets another opportunity to be a play caller on the offensive side of the ball in the NFL. You have to do more to help your tackle. And it's just not only on Ickey Ekwonu, it's also the fact that he had 7 different left guards right there next to him. And he's a second-year player. Having that experience would have helped. But instead, he's got a guy who's different every single week. It's like, hey, I'm Ickey. Nice to meet you. That's the way they were operating at left tackle last year, because Brady Christensen got hurt. And when they brought in Calvin Throckmorton, didn't really work out. Chandler Zavala, Kate Mays, the whole gamut of them all, they really struggled next to Ickey. And I think that was a big reason why he also did not play well, aside from the fact that he just didn't prepare himself and he needed to be better. And then he played just over 1,000 snaps, 13 penalties, 6 sacks allowed, 27 pressures. Pretty similar numbers, gave up more pressures last year than he did his rookie year. And we know he went 10 consecutive games without giving up a sack. So when you give up 11 sacks in a season after going 10 straight games without giving one your rookie year, that is alarming. Sacks, he gave up 6 his rookie year and almost doubled that total last year, at least according to PFF, as far as they credited him with those sacks. Now, Dan Morgan, he came out back at the combine saying that he believes that Ickey Ekwonu can still play left tackle. He had all this to say. I think it's pretty evident that our offensive line struggled at times last year. We've got to get better in that area. We're going to do everything in our power to make that happen. And they certainly have with the additions that they made this offseason. I'm excited to see him develop under the new regime, and talking about Ickey Ekwonu, the new offensive line coaches. I think he's only going to get better and better. And I think when you bring the right coaches in that maybe can help him out and get him better, I think that I'm confident in that. Ickey's motivated to be better. He's hungry. I've had multiple talks with him on different occasions, and he's hungry to get better and be one of the better left tackles in the league. Like I said, he's 23 years old, but still has developing to do, and he has the feet, he has the length, he has everything you need to be a really good left tackle in the league. I'm excited about him under the new staff just to see how he progresses on. So looking at it too, like, here's the thing that I feel like a lot of people just don't really understand or just ignore. Offensive line is a developmental position. And I get, you come to the NFL, you want to see immediate results. You want to see immediate results, really, if you got like a 5-star recruit coming out of college. It doesn't really work like that. Ickey Ekwonu was a 3-star recruit, goes into state, develops into a first-round pick. Now he's coming into the NFL. He's got to develop into that Pro Bowler, that all-pro type of player. So it's just going to take some time. He came out to shoot, struggled, not surprisingly so, against Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, struggled a little bit against the Giants. And after that, 10 straight weeks, no sacks given up, and gave up a crucial sack in that Tampa game late on the season. But it happens. He's a rookie. Those guys get paid on the other side, and they've been around a lot longer than he had as well. Last year, was thinking his stuff didn't stink, and it did. Now, year 3, let's see that next step. Let's see him get to the point where he really is that reliable piece on the left side at that tackle spot. And here's the thing, too. Like Dave Canales is here to get the most out of Bryce Young, assistant head coach and run game coordinator Harold Goodwin and line coach Joe Gilbert are here to help Ickey Ekwonu bounce back. Everyone that's coming in here is here to resurrect, certainly, Ickey Ekwonu, Bryce Young, but a lot of players on this offense's careers and get them to play at their highest level possible. So Joe Gilbert, Harold Goodwin, those guys are just as important and Panthers' success moving forward as Dave Canales is, as they hope to turn around this Panthers offense in 2024. So there's Ickey Ekwonu. What about the rest of the tackle group? Taylor Moton has an Ironman streak going on. They brought in a swing tackle who could potentially be Ickey Ekwonu insurance. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. All the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring back huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. If the Panthers are going to bounce back from a 2-15 season, Ickey Ekwonu is going to be a huge part in the team's success. And I'm not talking about going to the playoffs. I'm just talking about being competitive. I'm talking about getting the football right. So Ickey, he's got to be ready to take the coaching, which it looks like he's going to do. And Harold Goodwin and Joe Gilbert, those two working with the offensive line, are going to have to do all they can to get Ickey Ekwonu to play like a top 10 pick and to look like the franchise left tackle moving forward. So we'll see what the Panthers get out of Ickey once the time comes around. And that's kind of why I'm excited about the preseason and really the joint practices with the Jets. That's when the first alarm bells are really ringing about the interior of the offensive line as Quinnen Williams is racking up a dozen sacks during those joint practices. But then we watched that preseason game, and those first two reps from Ickey, tough. Did not expect that to be a harbinger for bad things to come, but it was. And we'll get to see the Jets again this year, and we'll get to find out whether Ickey Ekwonu is taking that step in the next direction and how this new offensive line staff, how they're getting these guys ready to go. So excited to see that. But Ickey Ekwonu obviously going to be a big part of the Panthers moving forward if they want to come off of what was a horrendous season in 2023. Another guy who will be a major part of it, especially on the offensive line at the other tackle spot, is Taylor Moton, who has an Ironman streak going on right now. Moton has played in 115 consecutive games since being drafted by the Panthers. He has been the model of consistency here in Carolina for the past 6 seasons. We have seen players like McCaffrey be great, no longer here. DJ Moore be great, no longer here. We have seen all those players come and go, and Taylor Moton's still here. And yes, I understand that those players are not here because of decisions made by the front office and the poor decisions that they made to try to bring in quarterbacks and desperation to get quarterbacks and jettisoning off good players. Taylor Moton's still here. And for all the great players that have come and gone, it's nice to know that Taylor has been able to stay here at a valuable position and get paid and stick around. And he has really rewarded the Panthers for their faith in him. It's not too long ago where we got down to July, right around the deadline for extensions for 5th-year option players. And I was wondering, are the Panthers going to do this? Are they going to go into free agency and try to slap the franchise tag on him again? Instead, Taylor Moton got his deal, and he has lived up to his deal so far. Last season, his overall PFF grade was 74.6, making the 23rd highest graded tackle out of 81 eligible tackles. Pass blocking grade, a 78.1, 18th out of 81 tackles. Run blocking grade, 65.6, 37th out of 79 tackles. Those are not elite numbers, but those are consistent numbers. We have seen there's a lot of guys in the league who are not consistent. He has been a top half of the NFL tackle through the entirety of his career. And of that top half, he's really been like in the top 25 of tackles in the NFL. And when you look at him last season, played 1,148 snaps And in those 730 pass blocking snaps that he played, he allowed 1 sack, 0 hits, and 41 total pressures. So just about the same amount of pressures as Ickey gave up on the other side, but only one time did those guys actually get home. And at no point during those pressures did they get a hit on the quarterback. I mean, they got the hit. I guess technically, if you tackle them, it's a sack. And if you don't touch them outside of that, it's called a hit. Didn't do that in any of those situations outside of that 1 sack. He was penalized 4 times, so doesn't really pick up penalties. Yeah, he gave us some decent pressure last year, but it's not giving up sacks. And if he's not giving up a sack, they're not even touching the quarterback. They give up a pressure, but the quarterback's not getting touched. And you need someone like that on the other side who's been a veteran, who's still a leader in his locker room to be that consistent player at tackle. So Taylor Moton, he certainly is that for Carolina. Now, the Panthers were living dangerously last year when they didn't really have a veteran back there to step up when Ickey was struggling, or if something would have happened, God forbid it, Taylor, or of course Ickey injury-wise, the Panthers would have been screwed. When a lot of fans are saying you got to move Ickey inside, you got to bench him, who are you going to bench him for? There really wasn't anyone back there who the Panthers could have brought in that was going to do any better than Ickey or Taylor Moton. This year, it's a little bit different. Yosh Nijman comes over from Green Bay, where he spent the last 4 years. He signed a 2-year, $8 million contract. The Panthers, $4.96 million is guaranteed of it, of which $3.96 million is fully guaranteed. So you figure out what that means. The guy's got about $5 million that he's getting guaranteed. So he is a new swing tackle here in Carolina. And I also kind of see him as Ickey Ekwonu insurance. If Ickey struggles again this year, like if Ickey's giving up sacks, giving up pressures, he's not playing well, the Panthers now have a guy who has experience who can step in there. And again, the last 4 seasons played with the Packers, played in 67 games and started 22. 13 of those came in 2022, 8 in 2021, only started 1 game last year. He started at right tackle, he started at left tackle, can play both of the tackle spots. Looking at that 2022 season where he did start 13 games, his overall PFF grade was 63.1. That was 54th out of 81 qualifying tackles that season. Pass blocking grade was 74.4, which is very good. Run blocking grade, 54.1. Of those snaps he played, 756 snaps, 10 penalties, 5 sacks allowed, 1 hit, 28 total pressures. So this is a capable backup tackle, and they can bring him in for some heavy sets. And if there's ever an injury, and I'm going to go ahead and knock on wood, hopefully that does not happen, you can feel good about Yosh Nijman stepping in there and playing right or left tackle. And again, if Ickey struggles, you got someone now this year who's capable of playing for you in that spot. So the Panthers have gotten better at the tackle position, really to truly be as good as they can be. Ickey needs to step up and play like he did, not even like he did his rookie year, but really step forward and be better than he was his rookie year and be a consistent player and really lean into the coaching and learn from Yosh Nijman, but also, of course, Taylor Moton. So those are the 3 guys that you're going to see the most out of this season. Ricky Lee, he is a 2nd-year undrafted free agent from A&T, played in 6 games last year. Every snap coming on special teams. And if he makes a team again this year, and we'll get into that momentarily, I would expect basically the same kind of situation. A special teams guy. And Yosh Nijman, by the way, played a lot of special teams in Green Bay last year. And it's always important if you're going to be a backup on a 53-man roster. If you don't play special teams, it's going to be really hard for you to make that team. Badara Traore, also here in Carolina as a tackle. He's only played in 2 career games in the NFL, 1 coming in 2021 with the Jags, 1 coming in 2022 with the Cardinals. Last year, he was signed to the Panthers practice squad back on December 19th. The 1 day earlier, he had signed a letter of intent to play for the XFL DC Defenders. Now he's still here in Carolina and probably more of a practice squad guy than anything. 2 other guys who are UDFAs coming right out of college. Jeremiah Crawford coming from Tennessee, played 3 seasons with the Vols after coming from the junior college ranks, was part of the starting rotation at tackle during that career, played in 30 games, made 13 starts with 9 of them at left tackle and 4 of them at right tackle. Then Christian Duffy comes from one of the best offensive lines in college football last year at Kansas State. He's a UDFA as well. From 2019 to 2023, he started 41 of 49 career games, which included a starting streak of 35 games rather. In 2023, he was not flagged for a single penalty in any of his 371 offensive snaps. That's impressive. So Duffy, big man, obviously Crawford, and all these guys are huge. Those are two UDFAs to keep an eye on as we head into training camp here in Charlotte later on next month. So how many tackles are the Panthers going to keep? Ickey, Taylor, Yash, they're probably good, but what about the rest of them? Can Ricky Lee make the roster for a second year in a row? We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. How many offensive tackles will the Panthers keep on their initial 53-man roster? And breaking it down to tiers, as I've done so far on these shows, guaranteed a roster spot, roster bubble, and then a likely practice squad, or not going to be on a team at all. Guaranteed roster spots, we already know. Ickey Ekwonu, obviously, is going to be the starting left tackle here in Carolina this season. Taylor Moton will be, once again, the starting right tackle. And then Yosh Nijman, you sign him to a 2-year, $8 million deal, about $5 million guaranteed. He is clearly going to be your swing tackle. And here's something also to bring up. Brady Christensen, we'll talk more about him on Friday, as he is listed as a guard on Panthers.com. And that's how I'm going to talk about him on the show. And that's also the position that he's played the most here in Carolina throughout his 3-year career. Will be his fourth and potentially last season heading here in 2024. He can also play tackle for Carolina. So I wonder, when you take that into consideration, how much does that change the calculus of how many guys you would want to keep around? When you know Brady he's right now your backup center. He's probably the first guy you want to play at the guard spot. And then after Yosh Nijman, he's probably your fourth tackle. Because he's so versatile, that helps the Panthers when looking at their numbers, and maybe they can keep one less offensive lineman. Looking at what Seattle and Tampa did last season, they kept 9 guys. Could Carolina be able to only keep 8 guys since they have Brady Christensen? Possibly. So Ickey, Taylor, Yosh, all on the team. Last year, Ricky Lee was able to make the team here in Carolina. Different coaching staff now. Different offensive line coach, all of that. But yes, Dan Morgan, front office, pretty much the same on that side. So it's hard to know whether he'll make it when you bring in someone like Nijman. You knew last year that there wasn't really that surefire swing tackle, as they didn't have Cam Irving on the roster. You had a situation where you could bring up a Ricky Lee. And that's the thing about UDFAs and guys who are on the roster bubble. Like, where's the opportunity? The opportunity last year was at the tackle spot. I don't know if the opportunity necessarily is at the tackle spot this year. So I'm going to say he's a roster bubble guy, and I'm probably leaning on him not making the roster right now, but still being a practice squad guy. The rest of them, Traore, Jeremiah Crawford, Christian Duffy, those 3 as well are all going to be kind of right there on a practice squad. And potentially maybe Duffy or Crawford. I mean, Duffy's played a lot of Power 5 football, so is Jeremiah Crawford. Lee's coming from an FCS program. Now, he's played in the NFL for a season. I understand that. But they're coming from some P5, I guess now P4 with the Pac-12 no longer existing conferences, and Duffy comes from a really good offensive line group. It's possible maybe they are able to take over his spot. I just think that with those 3, Ekwonu, Moton, and Nijman, and then knowing that Christensen is also going to be on the roster, I don't think there's a need to add any more of these guys to the active roster once they have roster cutdowns. Now, to the practice squad, I don't think it's ever a bad thing to have 3-4 tackles sitting there in those 16, as everyone in football is always looking for capable tackles, and the Panthers certainly could have some there on the practice squad this upcoming season. So Ickey Ekwonu, Taylor Moton, Yosh Nijman, I think those are the only 3 who are going to make it on the initial 53-man roster once you get down to the end of August. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe, follow the show free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And I'll be back again with you on Friday, as no mailbag, of course. We're going to be talking about the interior of the offensive line, looking at the guards in the centers, looking at the beef that's been brought in. Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis, welcome to Carolina. Austin Corbett, can he handle the change over to center? We will see. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole, as always and forever. Keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all on Friday.